Hello there. Can you guess what we're doing today? Well, I'll give you a clue. It's something to do with that thing there, and this thing here, and most important of all, this thing here. Yes, that's right. We're changing the engine coolant on the spares or repair Vauxhall Corsa D. Welcome to CarSpyTV. Okay, this is the Vauxhall Corsa we're working on today. It's from 2011 and it has the 1.2 litre petrol engine, and as you may recall, I bought it recently as spares or repair, sight unseen from a total stranger, and it then turned up on the back of a recovery truck. What a sensible decision. Now, as always, the first thing to do when working on the cooling system of a car is to make sure that the engine is stone cold. If not, burning hot coolant could fire out at high speed in all kinds of directions and burn you. Now, I knew a bloke who did that once, and he assured me later, once he stopped crying, that it stings a little. I bet. Now this engine is nice and cold, so it's safe to proceed, and that means finding the expansion tank, which is this thing here, and we now need to remove this cap, which I've already loosened. Now as you undo the cap, you may hear a hissing noise. That's just pressure in the cooling system escaping. If that happens, just pause for a moment, let the pressure dissipate, and once the noise stops, take the cap off completely and then pop it somewhere safe, in this case about there or there. Now when we drain the coolant, we don't want it going all over the road because it's nasty stuff, so I'm just going to pop this bowl under the car to catch it. Somewhere close to the radiator will do. There we go. Now, to be honest, on this particular car, there's very little genuine coolant in it. It's more or less pure tap water, but nonetheless we'll catch it anyway. Next, we need to get rid of the old coolant, and to do that, we need to remove a drain plug. That plug is at the bottom of the radiator on the left-hand side of the car, and if we peer down here, we can just about see it. It's that white thing down there, but it is a little tricky to see from up here, so let's get under the car on the near side and have a better look. There is the drain plug. And we can undo that with a 13mm spanner, just like so. And then, of course, the coolant, as it is already, will come pouring out of the cooling system. And this is a bit tricky for me. I don't have a lot of space under the car because I've got my camera and a light and my arms and the tools and a microphone and all other kind of bits and pieces, but you probably won't be so impeded. There we go. And there we go. I've actually taken the plug out completely now just to help this system drain a little bit quicker. And there is our prize, a bowl full of rather manky coolant. Anyway, I'm going to pop that plug back in now. Now, as we saw, the drainage plug is made of plastic, but we had to remove it with this rather vicious metal spanner, which means care was required not to damage the plug. If it had stripped, the chances are we wouldn't have got it out. Now, if you find yourself in that scenario, it's not the end of the world. You can still drain the cooling system, and all you need to do is remove the lower radiator hose, which is easy enough to find at the bottom of the radiator on the other side of the car. Now this Vauxhall Corsa D also has a bleed valve at the top of the radiator, which we need to open with this big flat-headed screwdriver. And that means when we refill the cooling system, air can more easily escape, and that will minimise the number of air pockets we have to deal with later. Now the bleed valve is easy enough to find, just follow me along. And it is just down that hole there. Right, let's open it up. A little tricky to see down there, so I've got my torch. Where are you? Ah, yes, I see. Okay, again I'm being careful here because it's only a plastic valve and it's a metal screwdriver. There we go, it's coming undone nice and easy. That'll do. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Now, this is the coolant that's been recommended by various suppliers for this particular car, which, as I said earlier, is a Vauxhall Corsa from 2011 with the 1.2 litre petrol engine. And what we have here is triple QX. It's finished in red, it's ready mixed, which makes life easier. And look, it's supposed to last for 5 years, which may well be longer than this car lasts because the poor old thing has done an awful lot of miles. Now, it may well be, if you have a similar car to this, that it needs the same type of coolant, but I wouldn't make that assumption based on what I'm doing today. Just double check you get the right one for your particular car because, well, it's important. We now need to pour the coolant directly into the expansion tank, so I found this handy funnel. Right, lid up there. Try not to spill it everywhere, shall we? Okay, oops, there we go. Now, I'm not going to pour too quickly because I like to give the air in the cooling system time to escape through that bleed valve. Now, it's a little tricky for you to see on camera, but the level in the expansion tank is about here, which is roughly what it should be on a cold engine. But what we want to do, of course, is get out as much air as possible from the cooling system. And to do that, I'm going to squeeze some of these radiator hoses like so. And we can now hear and perhaps see air bubbling around in there. And the coolant level will drop. And of course, we'll then top it up a bit more. Things are going okay. In fact, now I can see some coolant escaping from that bleed valve we opened at the top of the radiator. So we need to close that up now with the big screwdriver. Okay, off camera I continue to squeeze the radiator hoses and top up the expansion tank as required, and the level has now stabilised, at least temporarily. The next stage is to make sure that the car's heater is set to maximum full power heat, which this one is. I've also turned up the fan speed to maximum because in a few minutes' time we're going to want to make sure that we're getting hot air out the car's vents, all of them preferably, and if we don't, that may well be because there's an air blockage in the car's heater matrix, which on this one is just forward of this panel here, and that will need to be dealt with. So what we want in a little while's time is hot air out of these things. Anyway, that's something we'll check in a few minutes' time, but for right now, we need to start the engine. We now need to get the engine up to full operating temperature, and that means hot enough for the thermostat to open so that the coolant makes it into the engine block itself rather than just sitting in the radiator and the expansion tank. And in addition, we also want the fan on the radiator to come on and off a couple of times. Now, it's going to take a little while to get the engine that hot, so I'm going to help it along by giving it a few revs. Just like that, and I may also hold it at about 2,000 revs for a little while, just to encourage it to warm up. And while the engine warms up, which it is nicely now, I'm just going to keep an eye on the level in the expansion tank, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see that drop off a bit. And if it does, I will top it up, of course, with a little bit more coolant. And also, I'm just going to continue to squeeze these radiator hoses to purge a little bit more air from the system. Well, of course, I've got to be a little bit more careful now because these are getting hot. Right, it's now a few minutes later and the car is approaching full operating temperature, and I'm very pleased to say that we have lots of lovely warm air emerging from these vents, which is good news because I was getting rather cold. Oh, and by the way, I have also put the cap back on the expansion tank. Now, I wasn't quick enough to get this on camera, but nonetheless, the radiator fan has come on. That's good news. I've also been underneath the car and looked for leaks around the drainage plug at the bottom of the radiator. Again, no problems there. So, the thing to do now is to wait for the engine to get stone cold. I'll then check the level in the expansion tank, and if necessary, which it probably will be, I'll top it up. I'll also check the level a few times over the next few days and add coolant if needed. So there you go. We'd change your engine coolant on a Vauxhall Corsa D. Now, there's plenty more interesting content here at CarSpyTV, so you're welcome to subscribe if you haven't already. Can you also please do me a favour and click like on this video, and I'll see you next time. Farewell!